guys, this is Wenzes. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about personal development for INFJs and how to create an epic life on your terms. Today we're talking about what we as INFJs can learn from the movie Fight Club, in particular how to tap into our inner ESTP. If you haven't watched the movie and you don't want me to spoil anything, maybe it's best to skip this one, because today we're going to talk about how the character of Edward Norton is supposed to represent an INFJ and the character of Brad Pitt is supposed to represent an ESTP. We know very often people really type Edward Norton as an INFJ. Brad Pitt is definitely not an ESTP, but that's the role he's supposed to play. And if you watch the movie to the end, you find out, that's the spoiler alert, that Edward Norton's character was Tyler Durden all along. So Brad Pitt's character never really existed. It was just a part of Edward Norton's character, right? It was Tyler Durden all the time, both of them. And I watched that movie recently and thought about how much of this would have helped me in my transition into my INFJ Epic life, because I learned how to tap into my inner ESTP and it was different than what I first thought. Before we go into detail though, I want to remind you, if you want to take the next step in creating your INFJ Epic life and you want my personal help with it, then work with me privately. All the information you find a link in the description. So let's first back up. Edward Norton's character in Fight Club, in the beginning, he is in a rut in his life. He can't sleep, he feels really unmotivated, he's procrastinating, it's like this whole thing of feeling stuck. And so many INFJs feel like this, and the reason for this is because we know that the thing that looks like the things we should be doing wouldn't make us happy, so why even take those steps? He didn't want to get ahead at his job because he already knew all the people he was working with weren't the kind of people he respected. It weren't the kind of people that would make him happy. He actually started buying stuff for his house and none of it made him happy, satisfied, fulfilled. And isn't that something that we INFJs experience all the time? The problem with this is that we don't know what the solution is. Because similar to Edward Norton's character in the movie, no matter what we do, if we spend money on things in our house, even if we wanted to experience some kind of excitement, there is nowhere we can put our excitement in, right? Because he feels like he's living in this confined life. And this confined life is his apartment, it's the job he has, and within that job, there just isn't a place to grow in. Yes, maybe he could play by the rules, but every single time he plays by the rules, he feels less and less satisfied, he feels less and less fulfilled, and he wants to retreat from life even more. So where does this leave us? What can we learn from it? And the thing that really changes his life is when he meets Brad Pitt's character. So I'm just going to talk about Edward Norton's character and Brad Pitt's character because we both know they're both Tyler Durden. But the point here is he meets somebody who shows him a different kind of life. He shows him Fight Club, he shows him intensity, and for the first time he starts to feel alive. Things are changing. And this reminds me so much of a representation of what we have to go through. Because the solution is never within the system. We will never find the solution where we have created the problem. So if you're asking yourself, what am I supposed to do in order to feel good? I've tried everything. You can already be sure that your solution won't lie in this world that you're currently seeing. It's just not possible. Because you're living in this reality that is based on, let's say in this example, the job, the apartment, the people that you spend your time with, and the list goes on and on. But there's this voice inside of our mind which tells us, I do have potential for more. I am really strong. I know that I can withstand so many problems and so many people being against me. I can stand on my own. There is a strength within us as INFJs and we want to tap into it. Very often we look on the outside and we feel, okay, I'm so much stronger than what I'm actually doing. I could do so much more. But what for, right? And that's when we actually meet the Brad Pitt character in our life. So he's a representation of an ESTP. We need to tap into our inner ESTP, and doing that changed my entire life. Just a little backstory at this point, if you don't know me that well. I used to work in the banking world. I was a consultant in a top tier management company. So I was flying all over Europe, staying in Hilton hotels and all of that. And I was making really good money and I was doing that looked like such a great job on the outside. Like these are the kind of things that people make movies about. Like Suits, for for example, of course, that's about lawyers, but this kind of environment is what people think about when they think about consulting, when they think about jet set. But the reality is the life can be really boring, and it was totally boring to me, and I knew that I wasn't tapping into my potential. Once I was able to tap into my inner ESTP, things changed dramatically, because that's when I said, I'm going to quit that job. I'm going to say no to the thing that looks great on the outside, because I know I can withstand all the people that don't understand me. I can withstand judgment. I can withstand any embarrassment for going against the norm and doing something that people won't understand. That's my strength. And the way I did this is I looked at characters that were ESTPs that inspired me. So I, for example, was a huge fan at old school Lil Kim. So the videos really inspired me because they were so colorful, they were so powerful. And of course, having ESTP role models in a lot of ways is exactly the thing we should do. Because if you don't know this, ESTPs have the same functions as we INFJs, right? It's just the other way around. So if we have our function stack, introverted intuition, extroverted feeling, introverted thinking, and then extroverted sensing. For ESTPs, it's exactly the opposite. So extroverted sensing, introverted thinking, extroverted feeling, and introverted intuition. So we're both on the same spectrum. I hear a lot of INFJs say, okay, I can't get along with ESTPs. They have completely different values, but we don't know the entire picture. We only see what they're showing on the outside. And in a lot of ways, tapping into that inner ESTP will make us change our life completely. But, and this is the interesting part, you will never ever have to fear that you'll turn into an ESTP. Because that was one of the reasons that I was hesitant for so long. Because I knew I'm not going to show up like Lil Kim. I'm not going to be dressed all colorful and go through the streets. And I'm not going to be a rapper. I'm not going to do anything like that. And similar to that scenario, just think again about Fight Club. When we find out in the end of the movie that Brad Pitt never existed, that it was just an imagination of Edward Norton's character, we actually start looking at the movie differently. Then you remember all the things that Brad Pitt's character was doing throughout the movie and imagine Edward Norton having done all of those things. And suddenly you recognize the situation looks totally different. Yes, it was the same steps, but it would look different on the outside. The kind of energy Edward Norton's character would portray would never ever look like Brad Pitt's character. And that is definitely not just because of his physical appearance. It's so much more the different types of energy those types represent. But nevertheless, the INFJ tapping into his inner ESTP makes him step out of his normal life. We're not talking about, is this going to cause harm or is this going to do amazing things? Both is possible. There is no judgment in this. It's not saying if you tap into your inner ESTP, you will do really good in the world or you will do really bad in the world. But it's a part of our strength that we keep hidden because of the fear that it invokes in us. Because once we do that, once we tap into our ESTP, it's like saying to the outside world, I'm not going to play by those rules. I'm not going to play by the rules that are, for example, like played in this office that he was working at, right? He said, I'm not going to be the middleman here, or I'm not going to have my bosses tell me what to do, and I just play by those rules. I'm bigger than that. I don't care. Out of nowhere, he becomes the center of his life, and everything else becomes just like a second character. Everything else becomes just background noise. It seems like the world that he lived in just became a small part, something that he played in for some time, but now he's bigger than that. And that's what tapping into our inner ESTP is all about. I remember when I was working in my old job, and I felt like if I would tap into my inner ESTP, it would be a whole different world. It would make me become somebody else. It would break all those unspoken rules I have played by my entire life. And the reason why we INFJs play by those rules is, first off, we understand the atmosphere so well, and it gives us security. If you want to feel secure, what do? You play by the rules of your job. You play by them because here you can make sure that you're first off being tolerated, you're getting paid, and the list goes on and on. And this is such a metaphor for our life. And unless we're willing to look at it without judgment and to understand that this is something that everybody has to endure, we are all playing by those rules, if we know it or not. But what we INFJs can do is to tap into this strength that tells us, I can actually be bigger than this. I can withstand having other people's judgment. This is not going to determine how I feel about myself. And once I dared to take that step, I felt the same way. It wasn't right in the beginning. In the beginning, it felt like I'm going to be completely on my own my entire life. I'm not gonna have any support, because up until this point, I was playing my INFJ role. I was playing that role of the supporter, of the counselor. I was playing somebody's sidekick. I was holding myself back in order to play a role in other people's lives. And maybe I was playing one role in the life of my mother, another role in the life of my coworkers, but I was always playing a role there. Because if you decide to be the center point of your life, if you decide I'm going to be the person who decides how I want other people to see me, you are automatically putting yourself in a position where you cannot rely for others to do the hard work for you. Before that, we could actually neglect us stepping into our ESTP side. We could neglect being the force in our life that pushes us forward. We had all these people, all these situations going on, and all we had to do is adapt to them. We have a very unique strength in this, but this is a part of our excellence. This isn't part of our genius. Our genius lies in this inner ESTP. And remember, if you use your ESTP strength, you will never ever look like an ESTP on the outside, because an ESTP comes from a completely different direction. An INFJ tapping into their inner ESTP means that you are going to use your strength, the SE that you do have, which isn't like really strong, but you will use it in a way to make a point that you can stand on your own, that you don't have to play by the rules. That's why most INFJs that you see that feel like they're living their epic life, they live lives outside of the current norm. They become writers, they live lives that don't look ordinary, because through choosing our uniqueness, because through choosing our individualism, we're tapping into our ESTP. So I never look like a little Kim wannabe ever, but it's that strength that I projected onto the character that she was playing in her videos. The strength, I used that motivation, that determination, that sheer power of conquerness that ESTPs show so often. I use that to bring out my INFJness. So if I look at my life now, it doesn't look like I'm doing something so extremely out of the ordinary, or that I'm conquering, or that I'm in everybody's face. Nothing like that. But I knew that I was able to withstand the things that I was supposed to do. And that's what tapping into your inner ESTP looks like. That's what Edward Norton's character did in the movie. And that's what you can do in order to start your INFJ epic life. Nowadays, if I look at my old life, it looks like a small part of my growth process, nothing more. And before, I thought I have to give up my entire life in order to start something new. Now I know it was just part of the journey. You got what it takes to live that INFJ epic life, so don't let anybody stop you from this. You have the strength to withstand every obstacle that you can think of. Just tap into your inner ESTP and you can see how this thing will make you whole. I really hope that inspired you to take the next step in creating your INFJ epic life. Remember, if you want my help with this, then work with me privately. All the information you find below. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video on INFJ Phoenix rising from the ashes. Like always, guys, I wish you a wonderful day, a great week, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.